Hello learners, today we will study a novel written by William Makepeace Thackeray titled Vanity Fair. This is a satirical novel of manners. It was first published in 1847-48, satirizing society in the early 19th century Britain. The book's title is derived from John Bunyan's allegorical story The Pilgrim's Progress, first published in 1678, and is still a popular read at the time of Thackeray's novel. In that work, Vanity Fair refers to a stop along the Pilgrim's Progress, a never-ending fair held in a town called Vanity, which portrays man's sinful attachment to worldly pleasures. The novel is now categorized as a classic and has enthused several film adaptations. In 2003, Vanity Fair was listed on the BBC's The Big Read poll of the UK's best loved novel. Over 100 years ago, when this book was written, readers had time to relish Thackeray's various digressions into morals, psychology and human foibles. The modern reader may be perplexed by the incoherence and rambling, but by the huge number of characters, some of whom appear only as names. However, the reader is guided to follow the 6 main characters through changes of destiny and, in some cases, of attitude. Any inquisitiveness aroused with reference to a character will be satisfied by the time one reaches the climax of the story. It would be impossible to catch the crafty irony, the light-hearted humor of Thackeray's remarks on the human race without reading Vanity Fair at sufficient leisure to realize its intricate meanings. Amelia Sedley, of a noble family, and Rebecca Sharp, an orphan, leave Miss Pinkerton's academy on Chiswick Mall to embrace the life that suits them in Vanity, the world of social status and obsession for wealth. Amelia does not regard the values of Vanity Fair. Rebecca cares for nothing else. Rebecca first gains entry into the sacred domain of Vanity Fair by proposing Joseph Sedley, Amelia's brother, to marry her. George Osborne, however, thwarts this plan. He intends to marry Amelia and does not want a governess to be his sister-in-law. Rebecca becomes governess at Queen's Crawley and marries Rawdon Crawley, second son of Sir Pitt Crawley. Because of his marriage, Rawdon's rich aunt disowns him and leaves him penniless. First introduced as a friend of George Osborne, William Dobbin becomes the mediator and helps George and Amelia to get married after George's father has banned the marriage on account of the Sedleys' loss of fortune. Because of George's marriage, old Osborne disowns him. Both young couples make an effort to live with frugal funds. George dies at Waterloo and Amelia is saved because of William Dobbin's anonymous and generous contribution to her welfare. Joseph goes back to his post in India, claiming such bravery at Waterloo that he earns the nickname Waterloo Sedley. Actually, he fled at the sound of the cannon. Both Rebecca and Amelia give birth to sons. Rebecca makes a statement that she has Rawdon's wealth, but actually she conceals much of her loot obtained from admiring gentlemen. When she becomes the favourite of the great Lord Stein, she hoards both money and diamonds. In the meantime, naive Rawdon draws closer to Lady Jane, wife of Rawdon's older brother Pitt, who has inherited from the rich aunt. When Rawdon discovers Rebecca in her deceitfulness, He is certain that money is everything to her more than her family. He refuses to see her again and takes a post in Coventry Island, where he dies of yellow fever. Because her parents are starving and she can neither provide for them nor give little George what he needs, Amelia gives up her son to his grandfather Osborne. William Dobbin returns from the service, reconciles old Osborne to Amelia, whereat Osborne makes a will, leaving George half of his fortune and providing for Amelia. Rebecca, having lost the decorum of a husband, wanders in Europe for a couple of years and finally meets Joseph, George, Amelia and William on the continent. Rebecca sets about to finish what she started to do at the first of the book, that is, to trap Joseph. She does not marry him, but she takes all his money and he dies in terror of her, the allegation being that she has at least hurried his death. At the end of the story, Rebecca gets what she wants and has the money necessary to live in Vanity Fair. She appears to be highly regarded. William has won Amelia. Rebecca has been the one who jolted Amelia into recognition that George, her first love, wasn't worthy. Little Rawdon, upon the death of his uncle Pitt and his cousin Pitt, becomes the heir of Queen's Crawley. Little George, through the kindness of Dobbin, has lost his hazy values obtained in Vanity Fair. The readers have an impression that the youngsters of the third generation will prove much better than their ancestors in Vanity Fair. The plot is intricately woven because of the large number of characters and because the portrayed motives are rarely the genuine ones. Moreover, the author drifts away frequently that the casual reader may lose the thread of the story. The story, however, is very contemporary in its appeal, the struggle to have a strong foothold in the society. Though the tale seems incoherent and scattered, it is held together by one theme: the shortcomings and trickery of the residents of Vanity Fair. No matter how insignificant a character is, Thackeray identifies that person, perhaps by the significance of his name only, as living or non-living in Vanity Fair. The focus on human nature in all aspects, from motherliness to death, from poverty to affluence, makes the plot both credible and integrated. The variance is always man pitted against man for the joys and the rewards of Vanity Fair. There is hardly any soul searching. The reader finds it difficult to get connected with the characters. They just watch and hear what the author tells about them, and then, with some direct indication from the author, judges them. Any variance with nature is variance with human nature. Thackeray wishes to make an impact on the reader the uselessness of Vanity Fair, but does not miscalculate its values either. He confesses that roast beef is good, although it is fleeting in nature like all pleasures of Vanity Fair. He throws light on deception, the fraudulence, the double-edged behavior of human beings under the garb of doing good, being hospitable or saving souls, but all these activities lead to hoarding wealth or possessing power and gain advantage. For although citizens of Vanity Fair may have a poor opinion of the morals of their leading personages, this hesitation will not dissuade them from attending balls, dinners or any affair where one may enjoy good hospitality or sit beside nobility. The first one is Rebecca Sharp. She is the protagonist of the novel and a determined young woman. infatuated with status and wealth. She attends Miss Pinkerton's academy as an orphan, alone in the world, and makes only one friend, Amelia, who is friends with everyone. As soon as she is out of the school, her manipulations begin. She feigns attraction to Joseph Sedley, a wealthy man, flirts with Rawdon Crawley, leaves Rawdon and falls for Sir Pitt, the local baronet, for his money. She excels in the art of seducing men, but never expresses her genuine love for them. As a final act of trickery, Rebecca manages to have Joseph sign an insurance policy of which she is the sole beneficiary, earning her half of what she owned before his death. Second interesting character is Amelia Sedley. Amelia is a young, good-natured girl. She makes many friends at Miss Pinkerton's school. She is a victim of situations in life, her family's foxy plans, her family's financial woes, Becky's brutality, George's lack of concern, and high society's overall cruelty. George Osborne is an insolent playboy, his Amelia's love interest and the man she has been promised to since childhood. He is infatuated with the chase and is self-centered. He gambles, drinks, constantly buys things for himself, and takes advantage of Amelia's feelings for him and of Dobbin's devoted friendship. George forces himself to take his military responsibilities by refusing the comfortable life his father offers him. And as a result, he dies in the Battle of Waterloo. William Dobbin. Dobbin is George's friend who is away from Vanity. He is sincere and kind, and he does not expect gratitude for his altruism. He is very much in love with Amelia, but he puts off George and she does not even notice his affections for her. Dobbin is also extremely humble and often encourages George on the right path, and at the end of the day, but never stands up for himself. Sir Pitt Crawley. He is Rebecca's affluent employer and a baronet, but has accumulated huge debt and is beneficiary of his sister's fortune, which would bail him out when she passes away. He is miserly and ill treats his wife. Furthermore, he loves to be flaunted by younger women, and after Lady Crawley's death, he seeks Rebecca's hand in marriage. When rejected, he approaches Miss Horrocks, the daughter of his butler. The end of Sir Pitt's life is spent in embarrassing drunken decadence. He feels comfortable with low-class crowd, which makes sense when considering the narrator's commentary on his rough, crude manner at the beginning of the novel. The next character is young Pitt Crawley, the older son of Sir Pitt. He is one of the nominees for Aunt Matilda's fortune and is quite opposite to his irresponsible brother. He treats Rebecca and Rawdon with kindness, and at the same time is also a victim of Becky's deceit, since he finds her more intelligent, interesting and potentially useful than his own wife. Rawdon Crawley is another of the novel's playboys. He does not care about education and he spends his time fighting duels and gambling. The first honest and honourable thing he does is to marry Rebecca, with whom he falls dearly in love and vows to take care of her. He gambles to earn money and is imprisoned for not paying his debts, and when Rebecca refuses to bail him out, he exposes her fraudulent activities and walks out on her. The physical setting is quite huge, that is from London to Brighton, to the continent including Paris, Rome, Brussels and Pumpernickel, a small German principality. The reader finds himself in many places like City House to Country Estate, Private Academy, Sponging House and Debtor's Jail. But there is also a social setting. The story has a backdrop of estates and attitudes of the landed nobility such as the Lord Steens and the Crawleys. The house of the city merchants such as the Sedleys, the Osbornes and the Dobbins The Colonial Order and Money of Miss Swartz, and Joseph Sedley, The Collector of Bogley Wallop. The Military Protocol in Brussels before Waterloo and in India. The Anglo-Irish in the Persons and Prejudices of O'Dowd's, and Lesser Environs of Vanity Fair, embodied in the Claps, Raggles, Briggs and others. The book then has not only a setting as to place, but also, and more important, as to position and power. It is also treated as a social document, precise in terms of history, sociology and psychology. The idea. The title suggests the idea, Vanity Fair. The riches of Vanity Fair, that is, money and position, are sought after, but they are fleeting. The joviality, the mask of the ball, does not accompany the person when he faces death. Thackeray does not undervalue the importance of having a home, clothes and food, but he does reveal cruelty, the trickery, the vainness of making property and power the only aim in life. The victors at the end of the story are those who treasured human relationships first. Amelia, Dobbin and Lady Jane, with the children George and little Rawdon. Thackeray's idea then is that although one may live in Vanity Fair, one need not be a slave to its values, which in the final analysis turned into worthlessness. The structure is portrayed through narration, bits of drama, interpolated essays, without much recourse to the minds of the characters. The reader is guided by the writer to judge an individual with apt statements. For example, when the Sedleys lose their money, the chief critic and the enemy is old Osborne, whom Sedley has started in business. Thackeray comments on the psychology of the old Osborne's attitude. When one man has been under very remarkable obligations to another, with whom he subsequently quarrels, a common sense of decency, as it were, makes of the former a much severer enemy than a mere stranger would be. A persecutor is bound to show that the fallen man is a villain, otherwise he, the persecutor, is a wretch himself. Another example of dramatic presentation. Amelia visits Becky to find out if she can help her. Becky has hidden her brandy bottle in the bed and is putting forth every effort to engage Amelia's sympathy by way of little Rawdon. My agonies, Becky continued, were terrible. I hope she won't sit down on the bottle. When they took him away from me, I thought I should die. But I fortunately had a brain fever, during which my doctor gave me up and I recovered. And here am I, poor and friendless. How old is she? Emmy asked. 11, said Becky. 11? cried the other. Why, he was born the same year with George, who is… I know, Becky cried out, who had in fact quite forgotten all about little Rawdon's age. Oh, grief has made me forget so many things, dearest Amelia. I am very much changed, half wild sometimes. He was 11 when they took him away from me. Bless his sweet face, I have never seen it again. Was he fair or dark? Went on that absurd little Emmy. Show me his hair. Becky almost laughed at her simplicity. Usually, Thackeray just describes what happens. Although Thackeray claims to write about real people, at the close of the book he says, "Come children, let us shut up the box and the puppets, for our play is played out." Thackeray does write about real people. For example, Amelia is drawn from Mrs. Thackeray. Sentence structure ranges from a few words to a whole paragraph. The diversity tends to make the story readable and interesting. Deviation may come in the form of a question or direct address. Essay or narration alternates with dialogue and dramatic action. Whatever his faults in producing an extensive, sometimes imprecise manuscript, Thackeray have never missed a chance to point out the ineffectuality, the arrogance of Vanity Fair. The symbol from mundane everyday life, from the classics and from the Bible fill the novel. He shows Rebecca trapping Joseph in a mesh of green silk at their first meeting. As Becky is compared to a spider as she climbs the ladder of social society very fast. At the close of the book, she has literally tangled and destroyed Joseph just as a spider does with its victim. The Osborne household keeps time by a clock representing the sacrifice of Iphigenia. Iphigenia, daughter of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon, was sacrificed by her father for success in war, another ugly dimension of vanity. Amelia is giving up George and is compared to Hannah's giving up Samuel. The Bible story has religious significance. Hannah gives up her son to the Lord, whereas in Vanity Fair, Amelia, though she is not of Vanity Fair, sacrifices her son to the material world. The symbol here may be ironic. The imagery is equally interesting. Symbolism described in the following paragraphs represent one form of imagery. Old Sir Pitt, called Silenus, lustfully stares at Becky like a satyr. In mythology, Silenus is a fat old man, jolly, drunk, and he is an attendant of Bacchus, lord of wine. Satyrs are goat-like men, attendants of Bacchus, the god of wine. Men and women are compared to trees and birds. While Becky Sharp was on her own wing in the country, hopping on all sorts of twigs and amid a multiplicity of traps and pecking up her food quite harmless and successful, Amelia lay snug in her home. He compares George to a tree where Amelia can build her nest, but says it is not safe at all. When Dobbin at last has won Amelia, the author says the bird has come in at last. There it is with its head on its shoulder, billing and cooing close up to his heart with soft outstretched fluttering wings. He calls Dobbin the rugged old oak to which you cling. Dobbin, the uproused British lion, tells his sisters that they hiss and shriek and cackle. Oh, don't begin to cry. I only said you were a couple of geese. One of the most amusing assessments is that of attacking a woman's reputation by presenting her at court as one would wash dirty linen by putting it through the laundry. A countess of 60 is compared with dimming street lights. She has chinks and crannies on her face. The calling cards from the ladies of Lord Steen's family are the trumps of Becky's hand. But Steen says, "You poor little earthenware pipkin, you want to swim down the stream along with the great copper kettles?" Now, look at the interesting imagery and symbolism that has spread all over the novel. And they also give a strong message to the society. To conclude, the novel says or warns its readers to be away from Vanity Fair. I hope you got the message and also enjoyed the novel. Thank you.